Down at the bottom here you've got your ISO control. Now the standard ISO range on this camera is from 200 to 6400, which is pretty impressive. But that's not the end of the story, because also there's a boost which takes it up beyond that. Let's go up to 6400. You can boost that to 12,800, and then you can boost that again to 25,600. Let me just repeat that. 25,600 ISO. That is taking pictures virtually in darkness. It's absolutely incredible. You can also go downwards and set an ISO 100 if you want to. Then the quality settings, of course, the normal JPEG, RAW, and of course you can shoot TIFF on here as well if you want to. And then finally the white balance control at the bottom as well. Obviously this camera comes with its own sort of built-in vertical shooting position button here, which you can lock if you don't want that on. And you've still got the focus lock and the mode input dial for when you're shooting vertically, which is very useful. Okay, on the left hand side of the body you've got your various ports. You've got your USB here. Here you've got your DC in, your AV out, and your HDMI for high resolution output, which no camera is complete without these days. And your flash sync socket on the front, your PC X socket. Remember those days, those little screw-in things that you'd screw into the sync socket and you'd always lose them after the first day or after the first time you take them off? Not anymore. You've got a nice little device which is actually attached to the camera now, which you can just close when you want to, which is extremely useful indeed. Okay, and there's a remote socket there for remote photography. Now we talked about live view. Here's how to do that. You press this little button here, you turn the dial on the top here to live view, and you press the shutter button. Okay, so there's live view. You can of course zoom in on the scene to aid focusing. There you go, it's manual focus of course. Obviously in a short video review we're limited in how much detail we can go into, but there are lots of other things to talk about. There's the fact that there's a 1005 pixel RGB sensor used for the 3D color matrix metering system. The focusing is provided by a multicam 3500FX module, which is similar to that found in the D300. I don't know if I mentioned that the full frame sensor that Nikon using is actually a CMOS sensor, which is of interest. It seems that CCD now really is on the decline as a technology. There are also new micro lenses over each of the photo sites on that sensor, which cover the gaps between the pixels, which directs more light into the wells and improves the detail so that less light is lost in the gaps. Files produced by the D3 are pretty big, as you'd expect. 4,256 by 2,832 pixels gives a file size of around 35 megabytes when open, or about 12.5 megabytes for raw NEF file, and 4.5 megabytes for high quality JPEGs. Now, to handle these, Nikon has increased the size of the buffer memory and uses the X-Speed processor to speed the workflow. Now, to go with the D3, Nikon has also launched a new lens, a 14 to 24mm. You may have noticed it on there before, 14 to 24mm f2.8G ED, as it gives its full title. Of course, this isn't exclusive to this camera. You can use this lens on any camera. It is obviously a full frame lens, and at full frame, that 14mm to 24mm really is 14mm and is very, very wide indeed. Obviously, if used with an APS-C size or DX size sensor camera, that will become equivalent to around about 20 to 35 kind of focal length. Now, we do have a separate review of this lens on its own, but in using this conjunction with this camera, I might as well mention it. It is actually a fantastic lens. It's a cracking lens. It uses revolutionary nano crystal technology to reduce the flare that you'd get from the surface. This is a very bulbous front on this lens, which means that flare it can be a bit of an issue. It has a very, very wide field of view, so keeping the sun out of shot can be quite difficult as well. So the technology used in this lens means it's very sharp, very high contrast, very crisp. Flare is really cut down a lot. There is obviously a lens that is built in, you can't take it off, and that's pretty common in lenses of this kind of focal length, but really it's very recommended. In the UK it's about £1,200 at launch price. As regards to noise, the D3 produces the best images at high ISOs that we've ever seen at what digital camera, and even at the really, really high setting at 25,600, you can still, the picture quality is still, obviously it's very noisy, but you can get away with it. And at ISOs, things like ISO 1600, it's fantastic. In fact, some of the professionals we've spoken to who've been using this camera, they reckon that this ISO 1600 is equivalent to ISO 200 on the D2X, which they used before. Colour and white balance accuracy is extremely good as well. Adjustments can be made obviously to suit personal taste in the camera. There are various means to do this. There's also, I haven't mentioned yet, the delighting function, which can be added to the images post-capture, and this saves a new image file alongside the original. The tones produced by the D3 have been described as film-like, and we'd concur with that. They really are beautifully smooth and wonderfully graduated, unlike anything we've seen in a digital camera before, really. Very good quality, really nice shadow details, good. JPEG performance is excellent too, and not, I mean, we'd recommend you would shoot generally RAW mode, obviously, for best results, but if you're shooting JPEGs, those are pretty good too. There's also a virtual horizon feature in which internal sensors assist in showing and maintaining a level camera position, and the graphic on the back of the LCD is a bit like when you're landing a plane and you see the sort of the where your wings are in relation to the ground. It's really quite slick. So, in summary, this is a pretty fantastic camera. We could go into more detail, but time's ticking and all that, so I think you get the impression. We've got a full review in the magazine and on the What Digital Camera website, which you can read. Let's just say that we think this is the best digital SLR in the world at the moment. Image quality is revolutionary. The words like revolutionary and unprecedented words have been bandied around. It does show that it's not just about how many pixels you've got on the sensor, it's about how big those pixels are, it's about what you do with them, how you process them. This camera really shows that 12 megapixels, if done in the right way, is really just absolutely fantastic, and really you may possibly could argue you don't need any more. It remains to be seen. We'll probably be eating those words in a year's time when something better comes out, but for now this is the state-of-the-art digital photography. 3,300 and something pounds is a lot of money for a camera, but for this camera it's a bargain, and if you compare that with the competition, it's very good indeed, and that's one of the reasons why we give this a score of 95% and a gold award.